Welcome to the Auric Investigators podcast with Vicki MacHale, a mutant 4/6 emotional generator with a line 1 motivation, and Lauren Wenzell, a collective 5/1 mental projector. Join us as we deep dive into off the beaten path subjects. But be careful, because we might just make you think, or even better, burst a few outdated bubbles around what you've been led to believe is truth. Agree or disagree, it's okay, because we have nothing to prove. So let's get started.
Okay. Hello and welcome to our podcast and channel with your hosts, Vicki MacHale and Lauren Wenzell. This is our first episode launching this baby, and it is our intention to bring a new spin to human design. Really question, interrogate, investigate, and see what is true, what is not true, and what it means to live your design in a different way. Now, we are investigators. We are here to dig. We are here to contemplate, and we're here to provide this intel to people who are ready to dive in. So we are going to go into many different things, not just your type, strategy, and inner authority. We are going to look at certain things that most of the human design population doesn't really talk about right now. And it is with joy and satisfaction that we provide this information and intel to you. So since I'm a 5/1 mental projector and Vicki has her line 1 motivation, we are here to really investigate. We're here to just be the sleuthy sleuths that we were designed to be. So, Vicki, did you want to say anything?
Well, I was just going to say I'm the 4/6, so I'm the fun one, and Lauren's the heretic who's going to burn everything down. And like she says, our goal here is to just bring you new and interesting things. There's amazing podcasts out there, but a lot of them follow the same thing: type, strategy, authority. And what we want to do is to dig into the more obscure areas, or perhaps bring new things to light that people haven't really thought about. So that is our goal, and hopefully we're going to hit it out of the ballpark. But I do know that no matter what happens, it will be for our highest good. So let's do it.
Yes. Okay. So as line 1s in our design, it really is beneficial for us to start with the foundation. Like what brought us here, what introduced us to human design, kind of what's our backstory and where we are now. So, Vicki, do you want to share your story first?
Often when I share my story, I think nobody's going to believe it. But a lot of time, I'm learning that many people who are into human design also come from a spiritual background. And mine started with a very mystical and, quite honest, frightening experience. I was the most normal, fit inside the box person you had ever met. I was married for 35 years. I had the 2.5 kids and the car and the career. And one day my whole life just fell apart. Basically, it started falling apart. And no matter how hard I tried to hold on, it just kept crumbling. And during that time, I had a lot of mystical experiences. I noticed the wind was acting in accordance with my voice when I was talking to, like, my girlfriend who had passed away. And I started noticing things. And then one day, out of the blue, all of these vehicles started following me. And I thought I was going crazy. I had no idea what was happening. But as things progressed, and I was in a little bit of psychosis at the time, on top of having all of these synchronicities just coming at me. My marriage is falling apart. My career is in the shitter. My kids aren't talking to me. And I took a few days and I went into a metaphysical shop. And I just said, if there's anything here that I'm supposed to see or know, show it to me. So as I'm walking past the bookshelf, a book literally fell off the shelf and about hit my foot. And I bent down to pick it up and I'm like, why did this book fall off the shelf? And I picked it up and it was a book on human design. So I purchased it and I brought it home and I read it and it resonated with me. And I really sat down and I, did all the charts for my kids and everybody, but I really didn't understand what I was doing, or I didn't understand what was behind it. So shortly after that, I moved out of the house and started a 6-year period of just trying to figure things out and get myself out of psychosis or everything that was going on. And I would look up and I would see words that would say the book, or books would like pop out at me. And so I was a writer. So I thought, okay, I'm supposed to write a book. Well, about a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, I saw the words, the book. And when I looked up, I had been cleaning out some junk and there was the human design book. And it hit me like lightning. And I opened the book and I started reading. And all of a sudden I understood why I was being stalked by cars and maps and all of these different things, because human design is based upon the vehicle and the passenger and the driver, and everything started making sense. Well, one of the things I didn't mention is shortly after the book fell on my foot years ago, I entered into a class, very expensive class, and it turned out to be useless for me. But in there was a woman called Raquel, and she was a human design teacher. And this is me, like I'm not putting 2 and 2 together. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. She's a human design teacher, right? And so fast forward 5 years, I see the book. I have this epiphany. And I kid you not, I had not talked to Raquel in 5 years. Within a matter of days, her videos started showing up on my timeline. And I was like, this is crazy, because I had forgotten all about her by this time. So I reached out to her. She told me about her retreat she was having in Tulum. I went there. I found out I have mutant circuitry. And in addition to mutant circuitry, I think I have 4 of the gates that are in with the 2027 transition. And everything just started making sense to me. So for the past year, I have been in her classes. I have been on a deep dive, and I'm at the point now I'm getting ready to be certified as a human design specialist. And the things that have changed in my life just from starting to, enter into the experiment and learn about it has just been absolutely amazing. And I've done like 4 years, well, 2 to 4 years worth of education in a year. So that's my story.
Yeah, it's amazing, Vicki. I think like you're probably the only one that I know that have taken such extensive material and the length of time it would take to learn, condense it in such a short time.
Lauren, I've thought about that myself, because sometimes that imposter syndrome comes up around it. And especially if I'm thinking about it now, if I just start talking to somebody, it just comes out naturally for me. But during those 5 years, all wasn't lost. I was still now, when I look back, I was still in training. I was still, things were coming up that now I put 2 and 2 together. So I was in a training program. I just didn't know I was in a training program.
Yeah, I feel like when human design enters your life, you're already in the deconditioning process, whether you're being like certified or not, or really going into the experience. It's like you can't unknow what is being presented to you.
It's funny, and I have an open throat, so I love to talk. I'll let you know that up front, people. But I just started a monthly class for people, a membership class. And this is what is so amazing to me is one of the people, she had never ever seen her human design chart before. And she looked at it and she says, I don't know what this means, but it's absolutely beautiful to me. And she signed up for my membership. She's the vessel of love.
Mm-hmm.
So like spirit is pulling people. I've got another one that the racks of the Sphinx. So people, spirit is pulling people into me that are specifically here to learn and curate and design.
So what if somebody who's listening to this has gotten this far and is like, well, what's human design? I've never heard of it, or I kind of heard of it, or I don't really know. What's the best way that is simple but gives the basic information for somebody to kind of understand? Because it is kind of like learning a new language, in my opinion.
You know what? I think what led me to it and led me to truly believe into it is a way of getting back to your true self that is based upon 100% verifiable science through quantum physics and DNA codon science, but then it brings in the esoteric side with the I Ching, with astrology, with the chakra centers, with the Kabbalah. And when you look at it, especially the DNA codon science, the I Ching correlates to DNA codon science. So for me, being I'm 61 years old right now, I was very much in the material world for a long time. The fact that I can see the proof and the science, and I've also had some mystical experiences, it just brings it all to me. So that's what it is to me.
Yeah. And I've heard a lot of people say, well, I wish I knew this when I was younger. Well, it wasn't birthed until around 1988 through Ra Uru, who's the founder of human design. So it's everything is kind of perspective, 2020 hindsight. And I definitely, my belief is spirit, God, the universe gives us information when we're supposed to learn it.
If my whole life hadn't have fallen apart, I would have never been open to human design. I was not religious. I was not necessarily spiritual. And what really brought it home for me is when I looked at that timeline, I'm a line 6 of the 3 periods of your life. And I went, oh my God. And I started to see when my life fell apart. It was just there's only so much you can deny. So.
Right. Yeah. And I resonate with that too, being a 5/1. So Vicky's a generator. So her aura is very different from somebody like me, who's a projector. And generators, when they're in alignment, they feel satisfied using their energy. They're opening and enveloping. And that's very positive for non-energy types. It's like they're the battery system, right? But most of the population, we've been conditioned or programmed, or whatever word you want to call it, to be in the not self. So generators can actually be really frustrated in what they're doing and using their energy, and then that can be amplified and distorted in non-energy types. So it creates a lot of chaos and a lot of distortion and a lot of madness. But if I didn't go through my personal experience as well, being conditioned as a generator, being bitter, totally trying to be recognized and seen without the invitation, this wouldn't have hit in as hard as it did for me. And I don't feel like I could have really leaned into my design as much as I could have. And I'm still experimenting with that. So before I learned I was a mental projector, and there's different types of projectors. And I believe there's like 2% of the population is only like mental projectors. So we're a unique aura type as well with being a projector. So most of my life, I tried to fit in. I tried to keep up. I tried to be the best. I tried to be recognized. A lot of it was trying to be compensated from some sort of trauma. I'm all collective circuitry, so I don't have any tribal circuitry. And we can get into that later, but just giving that little like preface of where that came from. And it was when I moved to Austin in 2017, going into 2018, I was listening to this podcast, and they were talking about human design. And I was like, what's this? Like, I kind of know a little bit about astrology. What's human design? That sounds interesting. And then when I put in my information and looked at my chart, I was like, oh, fuck, this sucks. What the hell is a projector? I don't project. Like, I was obviously like, Ra really likes to use shocking words. That's part of his incarnation cross, to really awaken people. He's 100% mutant too. So that's totally in alignment with his design. But the more that I learned about being a projector and waiting for the invitation and waiting for recognition and being burned out and people stealing your ideas, I was like, my whole life, I felt understood in those moments of really diving into what being a projector meant. But I was at a point in time where I wasn't really in the space to take on the experiment of completely pulling back all of my conditioning. It really did happen throughout the years of, okay, well, I'm in this corporate job. I'm a projector. I need to keep up. It was very competitive, even though we were still helping others. I mean, unless people really practice mindfulness, accountability, good environments in their work environment, I have to tell you, it's pretty competitive no matter where you go. And everybody's just kind of looking out for themselves. So I was learning about human design here and there for the first, I'd say like two or 3 years. And then was right when the pandemic hit, around that time. And I was being sabotaged at work. My ideas were being stolen. And I felt like the universe was like, I gave you this information about being a projector. Like, why not try it? Like, why not experiment? Like, you have nothing to lose. You've tried everything else. Nobody listens to you. Nobody wants to take your advice. And you're just feeling bitter and drained all the time. And so I was like, okay. So it was very hard and triggering at first to keep my mouth shut. I would notice and witness all this craziness, and I was just like, okay, cool. But then something started to turn on, and I started getting my energy back. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? What is this? Like, wow, energy entering my body. I'm not wasting my energy. It was like this epiphany I had. And then that's just kind of how it continued. The more that I took on the experiment, that I leapt into my motivation, which is hope, because we'll get more into this later too, our not self, we're always going to be distracted by our guilt. I mean, our transference motivation, and mine is guilt. So it's like the fixing, and we have these conundrums in our charts. The 5-1 is a really good fixer. So how does that go along with hope? And it's like everyone's unique genetics in the charts that they have to experiment with and see what's right for you, because somebody can give you the information, but it's once that you are actually living it and seeing it in action, that's when the ahas happen. That's when the popcorn pops, as we say in our classes. And that's when true transformation happens within ourselves. So after, really contemplating it, trying to wait, and that was, I feel like that's like the hardest thing for a projector, is because we are designed for success. So it's like, how does that work where we're conditioned in a world where it's like, okay, well, if you want something, go out and get it. It's really like the manifestor aura type, which is only 9% of the population, and they have a period of waiting for that thing to turn on inside of them of what they want to manifest. But for me, the last few years of really diving more in, going into the certification process and being in these really sacred spaces as we're learning and taking on our design and witnessing other people and how they relate to their design, their gates, their aura types. I mean, there's nothing like that you can experience in like therapy or anything else, in my opinion. I mean, I've been through everything. Like, I'm a line 1, I'm a 5-1. I investigate, I research, I will try anything to see how it can benefit myself and how I can share it with other people. And that's really part of my collective circuitry. And I really felt that I was able to see the conditioning of the tribe and have that compassion for myself, and seeing like how I can just be more true in my alignment when I am in a group, compared to feeling like, oh, I need to fit in. Because the tribe, and you know, when you're with more than like 2 or 3 people, we call that a penta. And so the individual is lost. And some of these terms are a little more advanced, and we can always go more into that. But really.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just, you know, it's so funny because you said you have no tribal circuitry, but yet you moved back home kind of with the tribe.
Yeah.
And when I look at your incarnation cross, what is it? The right angle cross of wishes?
The left angle cross of wishes. Yeah.
It's all about bringing new ideas to the tribe and looking for a new way of doing things. But it also says you have to be extremely, extremely careful, because you can easily get kicked out of the tribe, which as a 5, you know, the heretic, you're already in that, you know, projection field. So
yeah.
Interesting. Boy, when you say you're going to enter your design, you enter your design.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we have all these different conundrums, and I feel like it's sort of like the puzzle pieces of our masterpiece of the jigsaw that we get to experiment while we're here on Earth. So it's like God, creator, source, universe, whatever. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to give you this, but I'm going to like challenge it here. And I'm going to give you this and like add a little obstacle here. And my son is in a tribal gate. And so off an undefined center. So that is very challenging at times. It's like, I get to really contemplate what that means for me. And I love how human design gives us that freedom of like this information, this intel, but then it's like, what does this mean for me? You know, how do I get to express this through myself? What is true for me? And then contemplating it through our inner authority, through people who are on the same journey, and, you know, just seeing everything, seeing who we were during our not self, and it will still show up, you know. It's like a 7 to 8 year deconditioning journey, and then probably still after, right? But I mean, it's giving me so much freedom and energy and healing in so many different ways that I don't think I would have ever come across unless this intel was presented to me. And just, you know, projectors, we are here to plug into other people. We are made for the other. And so it's good to know that, and to have that compassion, and asking ourselves, well, does this other feel great for me, or am I just plugging in, as Ra would say?
Well, I find it so interesting because I collect projectors like strippers collect dollar bills, let me tell you. And it's a thing of the open throat, because when you have an open throat, people don't really see you. And so I still am a little bit, you know, loud and out there, or what have you. Now, over the years, I learned to refine it, but I was married to a projector for 35 years. And when I found out he was a projector, a few things made sense, but I was blown away. And I was the only person with an emotional authority in the house. And wow. So when you start looking at this, so like me watching, especially you going through your design and living your design, it's funny because sometimes for me, it's triggering because I'm a generator and I say, hey, I've got an idea. Let's do this. And you go, oh, I don't have energy for it, but maybe next Friday. And I'm like, what? So that learning to wait and respect your boundaries. Now, the projector I was married to, it was so funny. I'd call him at work and I go, what are you doing? He goes, it's my lunch hour. I'm going down to the office to take a nap. I'm like, take a nap? What the hell's the matter with you? What are you taking a nap? He'd say, well, I need to take a nap for when I get home. And he would come home and I swear to God, he would start cutting the grass and doing the dishes and cooking dinner and doing laundry. I finally got to the point, well, if he's going to do it, I'm not going to do it. And I sit there not understanding that he was just myself and my manifesting generator and my other generator son. We were just lighting that guy up, and the poor thing, I kind of feel sorry for him. So it has been interesting because you always go like, how would I do it differently now? You don't know what you don't know. It's nobody's fault, but kind of like watching you, it's like, you really have to say, like, would this be something that I could live with every day? Or, I mean, it brings up whole new contemplations within your life.
Yeah, definitely. Like being a projector, I always try to keep up with the energy, everybody who had energy, but I was always so tired. And even in my last corporate job, I didn't even know how to explain how I felt. It just felt like an energetic sickness. Like I worked probably from 8 to 5, 8 to 6 every day, Monday through Friday. And by Wednesday, I was on empty. And then so pushing myself for 2.5, 3 more days, it was like I crashed on Saturday, kind of had my energy back on Sunday, and then got anxious just to repeat it all again. And I don't know how the universe has let me take on my design because it doesn't make sense. But I truly believe when you are intentional and you're wanting to, there's always a way. Even when all this shit, all the programming, all the scarcity stuff comes up, it's like, yeah, that's gonna come up. You get to look at it. You get to heal from it, break through it, whatever. But the universe is always guiding you through it. And with the non-energy types and like needing naps and rest, and we don't know how long it's going to take, but it's so important because it then gives the energy types as well to slow down if they need to, or not always feel like they need to be going or responding, just responding and response and response and response. It's like projectors and generators, they have a very sacred relationship of, the generators get to be in the satisfaction of their energy and do the things. And then the projector gets to be on the outside and lead, advise, and guide so that things can be easier. Because I can see like sometimes when people are in response a lot, they can self-sabotage and do things and make mistakes more instead of really like taking a step back, looking at the bigger picture, where non-energy types and projectors, we kind of have to do because we don't have the energy to like, do all the things. It's like, what's the easiest, what's the fastest way to do this? And then let's do this. So that's sort of what I've been observing more and more with the projector and generator relationship. My mom, she's a generator. And so I've been noticing this dynamic between us more and more. And she actually, even though she's my mom, she actually likes me helping her in that way. Just kind of like leading and advising and guiding, like, oh, wait, like we should do this instead, or let's go this way. Because if she's just kind of in response, she sometimes injures herself, makes them like there's more breakdowns and stuff like that. So I think it's really beneficial. And then just having that generator energy around, so the projector doesn't feel like it's trying to force themselves to do. And then being recognized as like a breath of fresh air and oxygen to our system, and it really turns on our energy as well. And so, yeah, like this information, it can be really triggering to anybody, not not just being a projector, but a generator and other types, because it's like, well, I'm this way. Why aren't you this way? Come on, like get it together. And then we get to realize like everybody is so unique and different. And that's what's needed right now. Nobody is the same. Everybody has a complete unique DNA blueprint, and we get to honor that. And as these structures and paradigms are breaking down, we get to be the ones that say like how we want to rebuild them.
Yep. And where do we go from here? My open throat is out of ideas. Now, you know, I it's just so interesting hearing the story and talking. And you know, I talked about your left angle cross of wishes, and I want to talk about the fact that I am the right angle cross of tension, and I am here to provoke people into a new way of thinking in the right way. And I can tell you for 60 years, I was very good at provoking people, not necessarily in the right way. And it's so funny when you start living your design and you see how falsely you've been living your whole life. And I'll just give you an example. I'm complete mutant circuitry, and I've got the 360, and that's all about mutation and limitation. And I'm here to be different. Well, I spent 30 years in an industry, HOA management, where my job, and I was good at it as a provoker, was to make people follow the rules and like live in these Stepford neighborhoods and don't have different bushes and don't have different doors. And it's part of what just wore me out. But I didn't recognize it because it allowed me to do so many other things that I like to do. But the fact that I spent 30 years of my life spending 14-hour days surviving in an industry that is completely opposite of the way that I am built, you know. So that's what I have for today. I do know we have a whole list of off the beaten path topics, because as I said, I like to provoke. So I am not going to bring in what I consider to be the boring stuff, but we'll see. And Lauren is the same way. So we're just here to have a conversation and talk to people, and hopefully you're interested in what we're interested in. If not, okay too.
So how can people get their charts, get in contact with you or me, and maybe like a teaser into what we're going to talk about in the next couple episodes?
Well, for me, I'm on Facebook at Your Unique Design, and that's YOUNIQUE. And the same for my Facebook page. And I think it's written down there in the description too.
Yeah. We'll list all our information in the description too.
Yeah, we'd love to have you stop by. We'd love your feedback, and we appreciate you being here. And Lauren, give them your info.
So I have my own company. It's called Transfiguration Coaching. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I'll also list my website. And we also have our email address that you can send any comments, feedback, questions. And if you have an idea of an episode you'd like to hear more about, we can totally consider that as well. And for our next episode, we might be going into some misdiagnoses and how that correlates with undefined and open centers. And this is a really interesting topic, and I think that it's really needed to contemplate.
Well, and I will say it's needed because I have two grown sons, and both of them were diagnosed with ADHD growing up. And now that I've looked at their human design charts, again, nobody's fault. We don't know any different, but what a disservice to those young men. And each of them has their own unique design, but I would bet every last dollar I have, neither one of them are ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of those sons was also bullied horribly. and it shows up in his human design. So if you do have children, or if you've been diagnosed as ADHD, or if you just want more information on it, tune in for our next episode.
Yeah. So thank you all so much for being with us, for listening. Thank you, Vicki, for this conversation. And we're so excited to dive in more. So until next time.
Hey, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, we absolutely love your feedback. So check out those links below and reach out with your insight, feedback, and even your ideas. And until next time, remember...
That's all, folks.